And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into things that we've been, I believe, just watching recently, but I'm not positive. I'm Terry.
Yes, just watching. And I'm Mary Beth, and this week we are talking Broken Animals, Truffle Pigs, a decade spanning platonic bromance, crazy women, and Chuck Palahniuk's guts come to 3D life.
Boy, I am very curious to hear what you think about this next entry in Final Destination. Because boy, but before we do that, let's start with Truffle Pigs. I'm
Real
curious.
quick, before
Mm,
I just want to say one thing I started from, and I absolutely love it. It gave me nightmares,
yeah,
and I'm very much enjoying it. Um, I just wanted to share
it's
that quickly.
good.
Yeah, so everyone should watch it too. Yips.
First season's on Prime.
First season is on Prime. I am on episode 4. It's very good and very scary. So if you want scary TV, there it is.
It's the place to
It's
go.
the place to go. But anyway, Truffle Pigs. So
Yeah.
I've had kind of like my eye on this movie for a bit. It's called Peppergrass, and it
Okay.
is. It's like it's a food horror movie basically, which we all know I'm into, and I know you're into, and it follows these two restaurant owners at like the beginning of the pandemic who are basically like, we need to do something to keep the restaurant open. um we need to go get truffles from this guy who knew my grandfather, this woman's grandfather. And what ends up trying to be just kind of like a way to survive turned into this like crazy survival horror in the middle of the Canadian woods and like the freezing cold. And it's like mumble gore pig with Nicolas Cage, except if it was from the perspective of the people robbing him of the pig.
Okay.
And it's pretty slow at parts, like I won't lie. There's parts of it where I'm like, oof, okay, there's a lot of just like in the woods. But I just really was very like fascinated by it's kind of like really fascinating take on survival horror, because obviously we have this like survival horror in the woods, but we also have like they are trying to survive in the pandemic. So it's a really fascinating like
Mm,
pandemic horror movie too, and specifically looks at how the restaurant industry is impacted by COVID, which I find fascinating because my mom runs a restaurant and like went through a lot of shit during COVID and knew a lot of people and going through a lot of this stuff during COVID. So it's just like all very weird and fascinating. And it's like just niche enough that it feels different, but it also like follows some familiar tropes but subverts them in a really interesting way. And that comes out on VOD in June, but there's no embargo. And I just like kind of wanted to shout it out because this is gonna be it's coming out from Terror Films, which like a lot of very like hit or miss movies, smaller budget, and I think it's something that's like a really interesting, weird mumble gore experience about food horror. And yeah, and it also it is directed and co-directed and stars an Asian woman, Chantal Han. And then is also directed by Stephen Garbus and written by him. But it's a really cool, like, women co-directed and led and written movie. So I think it's going to be like very much on people's radars, but I would like to put it on some people's radars.
yeah, I will admit I did receive an email about this and I immediately discredited it because of the cover.
Yeah, the cover is like really bad for what it
It's
is.
not good.
Yeah,
It's not good.
no, it's not. the There's a better,
Sorry
there's
to
a
whoever designed it, but
much better. Where is it? The poster that I really like. I'm sending this in the chat for everybody to see. This is the poster that I'm obsessed with. And this is the poster that really tells you like what the movie is. Like gives you a much better vibe for the movie. No, it's just the IMDb page. What the shit? Hold on.
yeah, I was like, that's the one I think is bad.
yeah, hold on. This is really great podcast. Whatever. It's gonna edit it out. It's just Purpurina that gets to experience this bullshit.
Oh, that's
This
much
is the
better.
one that tells you more about it and is like much
That's
more
much
the
better.
vibe. This
Okay.
is the vibe. This poster.
See, would have been more interested in it.
Right? Like, I just this is the this is a problem with so many movies, and Purpurina put the Blackwell Ghost Experience in the chat, and I'm assuming that is about the cover because there are so many movies like webcasts, for example, that like have these terrible covers and these terrible posters, but then you watch it and you're like, wait, that was incredible. And it is like such a testament to how powerful a poster is and how important a poster is, especially for like an indie movie. And it's like they're trying to make Peppergrass feel like this like crazy revenge thriller when it's a fucking mumblegore movie about two restaurant owners like trying to make it through the pandemic and like the fucked up shit that we do to try to make it in the world. And it's like it's so much more grounded than that fucking poster makes it out to be. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is me saying, watch Peppergrass, ignore the poster with the pig on the front, and just give it a try. And like again, it's very slow in parts. If you're not a big like slow burn mumble gore fan, it's not going to be for you. But if you like that kind of stuff, give this a shot. Like it's definitely gonna. I think it'll. If this has a potential to find its audience, and I would like to maybe help it find its audience. Yeah, and there's a truffle pig gets on a car, like an actual truffle pig, like climbs up on a car and also like breaks someone's kneecap, basically. So like,
Wow.
yeah.
All
Um,
right.
but speaking of that, broken animals.
Yeah. So, I went to go see, excuse me, Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oh Jesus
Volume 3
Christ!
this weekend.
Jesus Christo.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I just know it's supposed to make you fucking cry because it involves raccoons and animal testing, or some shit like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, right off the top, I'm going to warn everyone about animal abuse because this movie is fucking vicious to animals. There's one point in early on in the movie where we're following a young rocket raccoon who has been thrown into like this jail cell, and it's like a Toy Story Sid moment where like
Okay.
these horrendously modified animals like fall out of the darkness, and there is one that is a bunny that has like spider robot legs and like the martyrs thing, except not on the person's eyes but like over the mouth, that bar that's like in martyrs at
Oh
that
my
woman, but it's
god.
like over the bunny's like mouth, and all you see is like the poor bunny's red eyes and these robotic spider legs, and it's absolutely horrifying. And there's like a walrus whose name is Teef, and he has been turned into almost like a four-wheeler.
What
And
the fuck are
the
you
poor
talking about?
and the poor otter that he runs into has had its arms removed and has robotic arms instead of animal arms. It's horrifying. It had this is a movie that is I what I really like about this movie is that it's not about saving the universe. It is a more personal story. It's a more self-contained story. It's different than a lot of Marvel stories that we see. Yes, there is still apocalyptic moments once we get to the finale, but it is more contained and more driven by character than it is about a villain that wants to destroy the world or destroy the universe or whatever that seems to be the big kind of operatic plot du jour for Marvel movies. It's more about this horrible, horrible villain, the most evil villain I've seen in a Marvel movie, played by, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize. I think it's
Oh,
Chukwudi Iwuji.
yes, I've heard really good things about his performance in that movie.
His performance is, he is terrifying. This isn't one of those, well, I can kind of see where he's coming from moments. This is someone that wants to build, he thinks Earth is bad and wants, which, okay, but he also wants to like rebuild human society, and so he is tinkering with all these organisms to make the perfect society. And when he doesn't get that, he destroys it all and starts over from scratch, just raises everything to the ground and starts over from scratch. Like, this guy is psychotic, he is sociopathic, he is absolutely horrifying, and his performance is really really good in this. And it's basically like there's like a ticking time clock in Rocket's body. They need to figure out how to save him. Um, and so they end up trying to go through various paths to find out how to save their friend. And that's kind of the gist of the story. And it is really good, really intense, and just a really nice goodbye to these oddball characters, and also a goodbye to kind of James Gunn working in the Marvel universe as he's
Oh
going on to
yeah, I forgot about
do
that.
DC. So if you like them, like I love the first Guardians of the Galaxy is probably my favorite of the Marvel movies. The second one is not as good for me, but it is still decent. This one is more in line with the first one.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's they let him get away with a whole lot more. There is a really gnarly
Oh.
shot of one of the characters that's like a reveal, and it's really gross. It has the Marvel's first F-bomb.
Ooh, sorry.
Like,
Ooh.
I no, I know, but
That's
like
so
for
fun.
considering
No,
how
I
like
know.
tightly controlled
That's
Disney is
yeah, that's a good point.
on their property, and the fact that it is so, I feel like most Marvel movies are so sanitized of like, yes, we can have operatic violence, but like these people don't fuck, they don't curse. The heaviest curse word they can say is shit. You know, yeah, let
Let
Spider-Man say
Spider-Man
fuck.
say
I agree. I agree, Purpurina. Let Spider-Man say fuck. And so it's a throwaway line in here. It's not like it's like a big rousing moment. It's literally like shut the fucking window or something like that. But like the fact that Disney is allowing that, I think we're sort of seeing a little bit more freedom in this, and I'm curious to see if that's going to set the tone, because I don't know, like I feel like I've seen a little bit of change in Marvel movies in terms of like, well, Disney Plus is allowing, the rated M uh like Netflix movies on
Oh, yeah,
there,
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
starting to like move in that direction. So I feel like maybe they're like loosening the reins a little bit, hopefully, because they're going to be having Deadpool and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if they're sort of like trying to test the waters. I don't
Oh,
know, but I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good, and I thought it was a very fitting end to the series. And
okay.
also, it has Cosmo, the dog, who is an astronaut, and
Oh,
she is a good girl.
I love her already. Um,
So
I loved Guardians of the Galaxy. Like again, like, similar to you, I'm not a big Marvel person, but I really love the first one. Second one was fine. And I'm excited for the third one. I just like haven't prioritized it as much.
I get it,
But do you have to have seen any other Marvel shit to know what's going on?
girl. I haven't, other than Doctor Strange, I haven't
Okay, so
seen
but and you weren't
any of the like.
confused like or lost. Okay, I think that was my big
I was a
thing.
little confused. I forgot that Gamora died, like in one of the Avengers movies, and then came back. And this is like a Gamora that does not realize that she had a relationship with
Oh, that's right. Because she got in the end game or some shit.
one of those. Yeah, yeah, one of those. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
but for
remember.
most
I'm
of
not.
it, you didn't really need to have like seen like some
No,
weird ass
it
obscure
is
show
like
or anything. Like, okay,
the only one that I think probably like. Well, I would say I think the one that you might want to watch is the the holiday episode with Guardians that was on Disney Plus.
Oh.
Only because I guess in that one, it's revealed that Mantis is like the half sister of Peter.
What the fuck ever. Okay. Like, what is this shit? What
I didn't
this
know. I hadn't seen it,
dystopian
but
universe
like,
we live in? I swear to fucking God with this Marvel shit. Like, goddamn. Watch Peppergrass.
yeah.
Fuck Marvel. I'm sorry.
I agree, Pepperina. Don't give me a franchise where I have to do homework. Yeah, I agree, and I do think that is the problem with the. I mean, that's a topic for a whole other podcast. But I do think there is a problem with the way that I think Marvel is kind of imitating the comic books, which is a huge stopping point for me because I'm not about to read like all these comics and understand the differences between this run of comics, and I just don't have the patience or the time. I love that is tickling an itch for someone. It doesn't tickle my itch.
Tickle my itch.
So
incredible turn of phrase.
So yeah, I think that if you've seen the previous two and you are aware that Gamora dies and that Peter Quill is the half brother of Mantis, I guess. I think that's how it worked. I don't know. I didn't see the holiday special. It's just there was a brief previously on at the Alamo, and it kind of caught me up to speed. So, yeah. Anyway, that's Guardians.
Cool.
All right, let's talk about crazy women.
I really
Love me some crazy women.
Digging into like the very like tiny low budget indie hits this week because that's what I have been watching. But this is a movie that I'd kind of heard about and was curious about. It's Joe Lo Triglio's feature film debut, Outpost.
Oh, okay.
Again, put out by a production company that is like pretty small and sometimes doesn't always have like the best releases, but I had kind of heard about this, and it's about a woman confronting like abuse from an ex-boyfriend, and as we all know, that is like gets my ears kind of perked up to kind of see what it's about. And so
I know this. Well, I don't know him, but I did. I was like, who's Joe Lo?
He's like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine guy. He's in Reno 911. Like he's in a ton. He's a comedian. Like he's a guy. No, he's like a comedy, and he's like a character actor. If you don't like know his name, he's the kind of guy that like you look at him like, oh, I know who that he is, but you don't know his name.
Yeah.
But him and his wife made this movie. His wife Beth Dover, who is a comedian and was in Orange Is the New Black. She plays this woman.
Oh yeah.
She plays this woman who basically, after getting attacked, like undergoing a violent assault by her ex, instead of like dealing with her trauma, runs away to work at a fire post and looking for fires. And while she is isolated and alone with her PTSD, she kind of like starts losing it a little bit. And it is overall a very interesting movie. I was pretty surprised with it. In terms of like an examination of why we perhaps need to take PTSD more seriously and like what can happen if you really just like leave your trauma on taken care of, very professional words. It gets a little bit like wackadoo at the end in a way that is annoying. But I mostly really appreciate like a pretty fascinating examination, especially by a guy, of a woman experiencing PTSD after attack by a partner, like domestic, intimate partner violence, and kind of examining that and what that looks like. And I really enjoyed that. I think it's playing this line between being like an exploitation film from the 70s and 80s, and it's like playing with that a lot, but I think it ultimately kind of falls into those tropes towards the end, unfortunately. But even with that, I think there is something really interesting here that, again, like it might just kind of get swept under the rug because it's not like a huge release, but I think it's something really interesting and a really interesting case of like of a character who we are with the whole time who is an actual monster. And it's a woman who has undergone trauma. And I think it's a really interesting look at like a nasty woman, not in like the annoying like nasty woman sense, but like literally the nasty
Right.
lady, and the kind of nuances of both going through trauma and also maybe not being a good person. And it is actually very interestingly handled. And I really appreciate that perspective of complicated women. It might not be like, it doesn't like stick the landing fully, but I still appreciate that it exists. And I think it's like a movie worth talking about that I think deserves kind of a maybe more of a place in a conversation. It probably won't be in because it's such a small release. Again, like I'm saying.
Right.
But it's like these two movies I watched this week are not like perfect, but I think they're really interesting and they're going to kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I at least want to try to be like, hey, if you want something a little bit weird and a little bit challenging, but also stars Dylan Baker, who you've seen in like a bunch of other movies, like
Mm-hmm.
just try it out. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
The initial, because like the moment you talked about basically going out into the wilderness to watch to be like a fire watcher, did you ever play the game
yeah.
Firewatch?
I thought of that game the whole time, and it's like
Yeah, because I was like, that's immediately like my reference point. I was like, oh yeah, I remember playing that game. That game is really
yeah.
good. Not the same plot. It doesn't sound like, but
No,
I like
no,
the
but
idea
yeah.
of like that isolation and the fire watching,
Yeah, it's
being a fire
it
watcher.
is a
That's pretty
really,
cool.
and the setting is really pretty, and they really did like shoot at
Mm-hmm.
an old fire watching tower. So like the view, it's really it's his first time for making a movie. He really loves horror. He made something really interesting, and I think it's kind of cool to see comedians do stuff like this. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's that's out on Friday as the release as the day this podcast is out. It'll be on VOD or digital, so you can rent it or buy it on digital if you are interested in checking it out.
Cool,
Um,
cool, cool.
I want to hear about a decade-spanning platonic romance. It sounds
Yeah. So
beautiful.
speaking of beautiful, and speaking of beautiful, um, like location porn, finally watched this movie that premiered at Sundance that I didn't get a chance to watch at the time because Sundance their schedule was a little funky, and I really wanted to watch this one and I just missed it. And it's I think it's in theaters right now and it's coming out to VOD hopefully soon. It's called The Eight Mountains. And boy, when I sat down to watch this, I did not realize that it was a 2.5 hour movie, which which was quite a time commitment. Um, and it is speaking of being a little slow. This one is a little slow because it is literally a 4 decade friendship that we follow from these two kids that meet. So there's one kid named Pietro who his every summer his parents, well, starting at the time of this movie, his parents, his dad works, his mom over the summer rents out a villa in this very small kind of dying town up in the mountains. And once there, Pietro meets this other kid who's his age, named Bruno, and the two of them, like the town has dwindled from being a couple hundred people to like a couple dozen, and there's no kids. Bruno is the only kid living in this town, and they kind of strike up this friendship in the summer, and it sort of follows them at various stages of their life. So when they first meet as kind of preteen esque boys, to a falling out that happens when they're teenagers coming back over the summer. It's always in the summer because that's when Pietro's family moves up into this villa area. And then we follow them in their teens and then like a briefly I think in like their 20s, and we're in like into like the 30s and 40 time frame of them meeting, being friends, kind of becoming brothers in a way, a falling out in Pietro's family, and then Pietro's dad dies, and the main thrust of like the last half of the movie is his father wanted him to build this house up in the wilderness. And so the two of them start building this home for their father slash pseudo father in the case of Bruno. And it just sort of is like the ups and downs of, it's like an epic mumblecore of like, particularly in like the last half where it's kind of following. Pietro is sort of like, he doesn't have anything to attach himself to. And so he's out there exploring the world, while Bruno he only knows mountain life. And he says that he's been from a long line of tradition of people being in the mountains. And so he sort of does not want to leave that area. And it's just sort of like their intersection. And part of me was like, I really wish this was a little queerer.
I was gonna say,
but the other part of me is like,
okay.
Yeah, but then the other part of me is like, this is actually a really interesting look at non-toxic platonic friends and male bonding and friendship that we don't see a whole lot of. And so, like, part of me was like, I really want them just to, like, fuck. But then the other part of me is like, no, this is actually quite sweet.
Yeah.
And sad. And kind of depressing in the end, but also life-affirming. And I don't know, it's just, it really moved me. It is very slow because, again, it is kind of popping through various stages of their friendship and their relationship as it develops over the course of their lifetime.
Yeah. Luca Marinelli is in it, and he's a hottie. He's Pietro.
Yes, he's Pietro. Yeah, he is cute. And Bruno is like a hunk of dude. And that's why I'm just like, there's some longing looks here. And I think that you could probably read like a subtext that they are kind of like perfect for each other, but neither of them really realize it. I think you could probably read into that, but on its whole, it's just a nice platonic. Oh my god, on its whole.
I'm sorry.
But it's just a really sweet story. So I don't know when it's coming out on VOD, but it is out. I think it's out in theaters right now, and I really enjoyed it. So I recommend it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And to go from like a very beautiful, lovely movie, let's talk about
this hot mess of a film. What did you think as a first-time viewer?
Of what? What's the movie, Terry? Tell us.
The Final Destination, but it's not The Final Destination, but it is The Final Destination.
What the fuck is this? I texted you, said I'm in a foul fucking mood today, and I don't know if this is going to make me feel worse or better. And let audience the answers, it made me feel worse. So,
oh.
It made me angry. So, like, it was just so bad. Why is it so racist? Like, why is everyone in this movie the absolute worst person on the planet? Like, what glitching. It's like they took everything about a Final Destination movie and like took out all the fun, like good parts for the most part. There are some good stuff at the end that like was interesting. But like they took out a lot of the stuff and they just made it like angry 2009 movie. And I guess maybe that whole point is that is what a 2009 horror movie is. And I was thinking about this as I was watching. I was like, 2009 was a weird year for horror. And I think 2009 is a very pivotal year in horror. And that, like, I think that was where, like, a lot of our rage, like, post 9/11 has been concentrated for some reason. Like, this is also might be so much academic bullshit put into The Final Destination.
You were thinking about this movie a lot more than I think anyone ever has.
I have brain worms, apparently, because I'm just, like, waxing poetic in my notes about 2009 rage, when this movie is literally just, like, the dumbest thing dumb. With some interesting, weird meta shit going on at the end. Again, I will give it that. But it's like... I feel like The Destination movies have like a sense of humor, but aren't. How do I? This one just felt like really angry. Do you know what I? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like because there's like I don't know why do we have to drop the N word and like have this like guy say that, and yes we kill the racist, but like for what? And then we have like the Karen mom, which again I know 2009 that was not like a thing, and Karen on its own is also like a problematic thing, but like this I don't know, like something about it just felt like very angry and also kind of stupid, and it was very confusing, and I think I might be thinking about it way harder than I should be, but here we are.
This is what happens when you like take any of the like characterizations and any of the like actual character out of characters and literally just sort of recycle tropes. We have like a character that is like, I'm in control of my life. We have like all these things that we've seen throughout the series. I think you could probably create ties to these very stock characters that are just boring and have no life or any spark of joy in them whatsoever. They do things that make absolutely no sense to things that they have done previously. Like the one female friend, I cannot remember what her name is, Janet.
I
Played
don't
by
even know
Haley
who
Webb.
any of these fucking names are. Like, to be honest with you, they all are
No,
just like nice boy,
no.
douchebag boy, nice
Well,
girl.
let's be honest. I don't think the people making this movie did either because some of the characters' names are MILF, racist. Like the racist name is literally racist on IMDb. Racist's wife, MILF's husband, kid number one, kid number two. Like these are the names that have been assigned to these characters, and so I think we are dealing with literally like the kind of the trope that Roger Ebert used to rail against about the dead teens trope.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally just a dead teen movie. Like this is the movie that he would absolutely rail against because there's no point to these characters. They don't feel like real people. They don't have any personality. Janet at one point is like a believer in all this shit, but then the moment when things might be towards the end happening all over again, she doesn't believe it, even though she was firmly in the camp beforehand. It's like they make characters making decisions that don't make sense for their own character, let alone in like a real world type situation. It has stripped away any of the like vicious dark comedy to just be a bunch of splatstick jokes.
Yeah.
Like it is literally just splatstick.
Well, yeah, and then it's just like there's like like the weird sex scenes. Like I just everything about it just felt like they just wanted to do kill scenes. It didn't have any of like attempting to give us any kind of character. In all the other ones we at least kind of got to know our main characters and got to know a little bit of their backstory and like develop a little.
This is also the shortest one.
Yeah, like
82 minutes.
Like, these characters, they don't have backstories. We just know that they've all dated each other and that like they all like hate the bro. And it's just like it takes away any of the heart. That like, again, they're all kind of cheesy, but all the other ones had some kind of like heart at the core of it. Like you wanted them to win, and in this one, you're like, I don't even know who you are. Like I'm not really cheering for anyone at this point, and it's a little bit, and it's like that's kind of disappointing. And it's like it just like doesn't it's a classic example of someone taking a movie and like you watch the movie but you didn't understand the movie at all. Like you got like the surface level plot but you didn't really get like what makes that movie like work for people besides the gore.
Which is so surprising because again, we have David R. Ellis who directed the second one and screenwriter Eric Bress who also wrote the second one. So we have people that understand what Final Destination was, and I don't understand because I was like, surely this was a movie that was like, we need to make another one and we're going to hire you and you're just going to come up with it within like a day turnaround. But according to what I find when I was doing some research on this, Eric Bress and came to them with a script and they really liked it, and so they greenlit it. Is apparently how this went down. I'm like, this does not feel like a movie that's the case. So I'm like, what part of the script did someone say, ooh, let's make this? Was it just that it has some really out there death sequences?
Like,
I don't understand what.
I, I don't get it. That's so weird. That's so bizarre. That's bizarre.
Plus, I think the actual title for this movie should have been Structural Instability, the movie.
Yeah, God.
Because everything in this world that they've created is just like failing. We have the race car track that is like obviously not up to code even before shit goes wild, because we have cracks in the pillars, and we have seats that are breaking. We have the one woman goes to get her hair did, and the ceiling fan is like
Oh God.
loose in its
And
socket.
the
Her
chair.
chair is falling down.
Something could be said about the rocky infrastructure of the United States government.
Uh,
I will say my favorite note I took while watching this was at the beginning with the race car, like the race car track premonition, where I said Death is a sniper and race car parts are his bullets.
he is kind of a sniper in this one, because there's even the woman that gets her hair done is killed by a rock that gets like
I'm
spit
gonna
out
keep
from
my eye on you.
eye on you. Also, this movie was obviously made because they wanted to focus on the trend of 3D.
Oh my God, the notes
and
I took where I
movies.
was like, I can tell what you were trying to do here.
Uh-huh. Plus, for a movie that has a $40 million budget, there is a lot of really janky CG in this. Like this,
Bad.
just horrible. And this movie is expensive. Like it's more expensive, I think, than any of the previous ones. Like it has gone up in price, and it looks cheap.
It looks like
It looks
garbage.
so cheap. It looks so cheap.
Ooh, that's rough. That is rough-a-rody.
It's just not good. And I was curious to see if I was going to change my opinion on it, just because like I had only ever seen this in the movie theater in 3D, and that was the only time that I went to go see this, and I was like, well, maybe.
No, and this definitely ripped. If any of you have ever read Chuck Palahniuk's story Guts, it just like rips. Pardon my French. Right from that, kind of. Well, mostly for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Not So, I wrote. I really hate the brain worms that you have when you know exactly what that is, and if you don't know what that is, bless you, don't look it up.
Oh no, go look
Terry,
it up. Go
stop
listen
it.
to
Stop.
a YouTube.
Terry, save them.
Go listen.
Save them. Save them from themselves.
No,
I read
you
that
should
in
go
high
to
school.
YouTube.
Why did I do that? I've known about this story for over half my life. That's not fair. I've been
Go to
stained.
YouTube, search Chuck Palahniuk Guts, and listen to him. That I'm sure I think there's some versions of him reading it, because this was like one of his favorite stories to read at like writer
Fucking
reading
freak.
segments. Go listen to it and or read it. It's in his book Haunted. So if you want to read it, you can also go check out that book. And yes, as Purpurina says, read it while eating. Read it at church. These are both perfect activities to experience guts.
Sick fucks. All of you. All of you. I can't go swimming without thinking about that goddamn fucking book every time. Anyway, who were we talking to on Monday? I'm just gonna let you sit here.
Oops. I'm trying to remember. We normally write this down, and we didn't today, and now I'm struggling.
What?
Okay, we talked with Terrell Trotty, who is a YouTuber, and he has a series out of the Overlook Theater. Is that what? Called Blu-ray Tuesdays with Terrell. And we met him at the Unnamed Footage Festival, and he is a delight, and he brought with him A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. So we have now officially covered 4 of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies on this podcast.
We sure have. Shit. Huh. And then next week we are continuing. Yes, continuing. That this was not the Final Destination because they were like, we can't end the franchise like this. This was a goddamn disgrace.
On a wet fart.
We are watching the 5th and currently final, but not actually because there's a new one coming out. The 5th Final Destination movie next week. So our series is coming to an end. That was really fast. Jesus Christ.
It was. But this is a movie that I remember enjoying. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember enjoying it and remember it being a really nice coda to this series.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm excited. Hooray. All right, so listen.
And anything has to be better than this movie.
Yeah, God, Jesus Christ. Good Lord. I mean, like, I will say, I love a good opening title sequence. Like, that's the one thing they did right. That's it. Anyway,
going through all the kills in the series.
Yeah.
With like the anatomic.
And it looks like a fucking fatality in Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like, and they fucking do that at the end, but they don't do that for the rest of the movie. I was like, what the fuck is the point? Like, you could have done that the whole time, and that would have been interesting, but what the hell? What kind of bullshit is this? Did you get knocked out and wake up and forget how to make a movie? Like, I don't understand how this happened. Who read that script and was like, yeah, we're gonna have a racist guy call a guy the N-word in 2009 and be like, look, then we killed him. And it's like, all right, sorry.
Not only say the N-word, but then drive to the man's house and is about to like build a KKK like cross in his yard.
We spend a lot of time watching this guy plan a hate crime.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And then he gets dragged down the street on fire, which was kind of hilarious because it's like, why can't we be friends?
Like,
as he's being dragged down the street. But
I enjoy that, but I also don't think it was.
No, it's not necessary. It was.
And then it's like never really mentioned again. But like, hey, by the way, this whole thing started with the black guy like finding out he was about to get hate crimed by this like insane racist, and then just like never bring it up again. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, casual. God damn it. Anyway.
Also, one final thing. I think it's wild that our main character gets like the most on the nose premonitions. Like everyone else has had to like scramble to figure out what their kind of premonitions mean coming up, whereas he has these like really horrible CGI 3D moments of things like literally saying, dude, this is what's going to happen.
They just are so lazy. Like, Jesus Christ. Anyway,
it's so lazy.
You've heard from us. I can't talk about this movie anymore. Someone bring this as your Scarred for Life pick, and then I can just bitch about it for an hour and a half. You've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Did you watch a film we watched and have thoughts? If you have positive thoughts about Final Destination, do keep those to yourself, though. I don't want to hear about that. I've had a bad day. Do you have suggestions for movies we should cover for our next series? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I'm at MB McAndrews, and I'm also obviously feeling a little punchy, so if you really want to...
Gaily dreadful.
Follow the fucking podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And leave us a fucking review.
Yeah, God damn.
Or something. I don't know. We're on Letterboxd. We're on Patreon. If you want to help support us, please give us a review. Make sure you're subscribed because it helps with the algorithms, all that kind of fun stuff. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
while
you.
I am rude, I also love you deeply. Thank you, thank you, Eric Power, for our artwork. Buy Attack of the Demons on Blu-ray on Vinegar Syndrome.
It's shipping. I got my shipping notification.
Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.